Okay, what's going on, everybody? We are here. We're live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. If you can see and hear me clearly, please drop a one in the live chat. And as I'm waiting for the ones to come into the live chat, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button because that is the most important thing you can do for me on this channel. What it does, that helps to make sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get the notifications, and it also helps to push this video through the YouTube algorithm as well. Secondly, if you're new to the channel, or maybe you have been ghost watching this channel for quite some time now, please do me a favor and yourself a favor by subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, please share this video out on your social media platforms to let everyone know that I'm currently live, to share this video with your family and friends. And it also does help to give me a slight boost in the YouTube algorithm as well. So, help me out with that. Let me get a little boost in the algorithm so this channel can grow. And with the introduction out of the way, we can now get today's show started. And today's stream is titled, Will the Ghost of Biden and Harris Affect Donald Trump's Hush Money Trial? That's the name of today's stream. I wanted to make it a point to follow this trial, the Hush Money trial, because it's a very historical trial, to say the very least. I didn't follow the Fannie Willis one the way that I should have. I followed it as far as just personally, but not well enough that I was going to sit up here and dialogue with you all about it. So I told myself I was going to do that with this one. And boy, let me tell you, as I've looked into this trial, as it has begun, right? We're in day 2 as it pertains, as far as jury selection is concerned. As I've looked into this, I'll tell you something, man. Me personally, when it comes to the whole thing of glass half empty, glass half full, I've always personally been a glass half empty kind of guy. I've always been a glass half empty kind of guy, and I'm gonna be honest with you. It's just me. I know some people might feel differently, but as far as this Trump trial is concerned, the Hush Money trial, the glass is definitely half empty. It's definitely half empty, because he has an uphill battle ahead of him. Let me tell you. Hence why I titled today's stream "The Ghost," right? The ghost of Kamala Harris and Biden. Will it affect his trial? So let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. Let's establish a couple things first, for those of you who aren't familiar with the trial, and if you're just catching up. First things first, right? This is going to be the first trial where a former U.S. president is going to be presiding over, or I shouldn't say presiding, but where it's the first trial where a former U.S. president will be hit with criminal charges and is actually going to trial for it. He's been charged on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, in an effort to cover up payments to Stormy Daniels. And I believe the other woman's name is Karen McDougal, if I'm not mistaken, to just basically give them hush money. Hence the name of the trial is the Hush Money trial, giving them hush money to silence them on the alleged affair that was supposed to have happened between Trump and these women, right? And if Trump is convicted, Donald Trump is looking at up to 136 years in prison. That is if he's convicted on all 34 charges, which carry a maximum sentence of 4 years each, right? So he's looking at 136 years in prison. But, as I looked into that a little bit further, he's not really technically looking at 136 years in prison, as this article states here. And I want to pull that up for you right now. And all the links to these articles will be in the description box below once the stream is over. But let me read this off for you guys real quick so we can get a little bit more technical into concerning how much time Trump would actually get if he's convicted. The maximum sentence for each count is 4 years in prison, which would add up to 136 years behind bars. But as Miss Coates explained, and let me zoom in a little bit more for you so you can read along with me. New York imposes a 20-year sentencing cap for this type of offense, with the decision on whether the sentence will run concurrently or consecutively. That will be left up to the judge. So if I'm reading this correctly, as it pertains to this crime specifically, there's a hard cap of 20 years. So yes, altogether, he's looking at 136 years in prison. It sounds very sensational to say it just to grab people in. I probably should have put that in the title. But realistically speaking, once again, if I'm reading this correctly, there's a cap of 20 years. So he's not going to serve any more than 20 years. But as we continue to read on, it states, given that Trump also has no prior criminal record, and the crimes which he stands accused are nonviolent in nature, Judge Juan Merchant could ultimately incline towards leniency and only sentence him to a fraction of the maximum jail time allowed. Right. Alternatively, the justice could simply choose to place him on probation with the threat of imprisonment hanging over the defendant in the event that in the event that he does not abide by any conditions that are ultimately imposed upon him. So he's looking at anywhere between 20 years and probation. That's what he's looking at if he's convicted on all 34 charges, right? But now what I want to do is get into the very interesting aspect of this trial concerning the difficulty selecting a jury. I want to get into that because once again, yesterday they started the jury selection process. And out of 96 people that they interviewed, you can say, concerning the jury selection process and to find out whether or not they were capable of being impartial, right? And being fair, 50 out of the 96 or 94 it was, 50 of them raised their hand and said, I am not capable of being impartial. I am not capable of being fair towards Trump in this trial. Now, I want to take a moment to play a quick video from Forbes Breaking News with just one of their pundits discussing really how unusual that is. That's not the norm for that many people to raise their hand and say, yeah, it's not possible for me to be impartial. I dislike this guy a lot, and he's just going to be guilty off top if I'm on the jury. So you might not want to have me on. So let me play that clip for you right now.
President Trump's attorneys have made clear that they do not believe they can have a fair and impartial jury in Manhattan because there are so many individuals who not only know of Trump, but that they may not support him in any way, shape, or form. So that sets the ground for what we have now, which is the jury selection in this case, which is step one before we get to the trial and before we get to opening arguments, which will be put on by both sides. So you asked me, what do the prosecutors want and what does the defense want in this matter? Initially, Judge Mershon came out early on in the jury selection. We had about 96 potential jurors out of a pool of 200 and asked them a baseline question, which was, can you be impartial in this trial, knowing who the defendant is, knowing that it's Donald Trump? And in a rarity, about 50 individuals raised their hand saying no, that they couldn't be impartial. So I just bring this up as a microcosm of what we may be facing in terms of this jury selection. It's going to be difficult.
It's going to be difficult. Now, so far, as of today, they've selected 7 jurors so far as of today. Yesterday, they didn't select anybody. Because for the most part, people just were honest, surprisingly enough, and said, hey, man, I don't rock with Trump, and there's no way I can be fair towards him. I'm just going to keep it real. I raise my hand, and I'm going to bow out of this process. And once again, this really just goes to highlight the difficulty that they're going to have finding jurors. I don't think that they're going to get all 11 jurors tomorrow. I don't think so. I think this is going to most likely, in my opinion, carry out throughout the rest of this week, because when you look at the anti-Trump campaign that just ran 24/7 by DNC news networks, yeah, man, a lot of people hate the guy. For as many people like him, a lot more, or I shouldn't say a lot more, but a lot of people hate the guy. And it's going to be really difficult to find people who can be honest and, be a juror on this case and just look at it from an honest perspective, just the facts only, and determine whether or not, he's innocent or guilty, beyond a reasonable doubt. Right. But now here's really what I wanted to get into next, and why I said, will the ghost of Kamala Harris and Donald and Joe Biden affect this case? I want to get into this because this is really the meat and potatoes of today's stream. Let me pull this up for you right now. And there are currently 132 of you in the stream right now. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. But let's get into this. I want to pull this up. And this is very interesting because this article that I have here, it actually comes from CNN. And surprisingly enough, they were pretty honest in this article. They're pretty honest in this article. This article is titled "Breaking Down Trump's Attacks on the Daughter of the Judge in His New York Hush Money Trial." I want to get into this right now because this is where Biden, Harris, and the Democratic Party overall really come into play in an unethical way. I'll say, in my personal opinion, in a very unethical way. But before we do that, I want to thank those who have contributed to today's stream. Thank you very much, Carlton Away, for always coming through with the super chat. I appreciate you, Carlton, for always showing love. And thank you to John Mayers for becoming a channel member. Every time you guys show me love on this channel is deeply appreciated. I do not exist without you guys' support. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Now, let's get into this article here. And what I want to do is zoom in because these words are really small. I can barely read them, and I know you can't either. So let's get into it and check this out. Former President Donald Trump recently ramped up his attacks against the daughter of the judge presiding over his hush money criminal trial in New York and repeatedly cited her Democratic ties in a new attempt this week to remove the judge from the case. Now, mind you, this was written last week. Judge Juan Merchan then brought in an already existing gag order Monday after Trump vilified Merchan's daughter with a combination of accurate information about her political affiliations melded with dubious claims about her supposed anti-Trump online posts, which the court says do not even belong to her. What did Trump claim? Last week, Trump posted on his Truth Social platform that Judge Merchan is a certified Trump hater and said Lauren Merchan, his daughter, is a senior executive at a super liberal Democrat firm that has worked with top Democrats, including President Joe Biden. The focus of Merchan's daughter began last week when the judge was assigned to the case. It flared up last week with an article about her in the conservative New York Post. Now, what's funny about that, as they say, the conservative New York Post, and you're going to see this repeated throughout this article, is that the claims that are being made are accurate concerning her affiliations, who she's associated with, and who she works with. But in order to discredit the truth, they make it a point to say, yeah, this came from, conservative news outlet, the New York Post. Yeah, this might be true, but it did come from the conservative news outlet X, Y, and Z. So they throw that out there to make it appear as if the truth is a lie just because it came from a conservative news outlet. That's something that's very interesting, and a very kind of clever play on words to manipulate the truth, right? I think it's actually really clever. But let's carry on. In the conservative New York Post, Lauren Merchan has not commented publicly on the case and couldn't be reached by CNN. So she's staying silent right now. Lauren Merchan doesn't want to talk to anybody concerning the case. And you would say, well, why would she? Because she's not going to be a part of the case. But she also knows she's going to be asked a lot of questions concerning her political affiliation. And that's what we're going to get into right now in this segment here. And CNN cites, it's true that Lauren Merchant has served as president of Authentic Campaigns, a firm that does digital campaign work like online fundraising, mobile messaging, and web design. They work with Democratic political candidates, including some of Trump's most outspoken opponents. They're admitting this here on CNN. Okay. The firm has scrubbed references to her on its site. Once again, this is CNN that's admitting this. The firm has scrubbed her name off the site. This is the daughter of the judge that's presiding over the hush money case. They scrubbed her name off the site. So it's not entirely clear if she is still in the role at the company. Merchant wrote in an August ruling that his daughter was still the company's president and chief operating officer at the time. Furthermore, a screenshot purporting to be from Lauren Merchant's LinkedIn said she was the director of digital persuasion for now Vice President Kamala Harris's 2020 presidential campaign. So she worked for Kamala Harris as well when she was running for office. The screenshot was captured last year by right-wing outlets before her LinkedIn page was made private. Now you see how once again they keep making it a point to mention that this came from a right-wing outlet. But the information is either true or it's false. It's either factual or it's not. And trust me, by now, if it wasn't, the fact checkers would have been all over this. And they would have said, well, none of this is true. But they haven't been. Everything that CNN is stating here is true. They're validating that everything that Trump has said about the judge's daughter is true. But they attempt to discredit it by saying, yeah, but I mean, it was on a right-wing outlet, as if that takes away from the fact of the matter, right? And what I want to do here is I want to pull this up, this article very quickly, and then we're going to get back into the CNN article. Daughter of judge overseeing Trump case works with Biden-Harris campaign. And I just want to show you guys the screenshot here. This is the LinkedIn screenshot that you now can't see because her account was put on private. It was public, but CNN reported truthfully that once this screenshot was taken, showing that the judge's daughter worked for Harris and Biden, she put her account on private. So now no one can go on there. I mean, if that's, you can't be any more guilty than that. You can't get any more guilty than that. And the sentence just simply reads here before we hop back in the CNN article. Lauren Merchant stopped working for Kamala Harris for the people when the now VP dropped out of the presidential race in December of 2019. So she stopped working for Kamala Harris directly when she dropped out of the race, but then proceeded to work with her indirectly by working on Biden's 2020 campaign, right? To which Kamala Harris was the vice president. Now let's get back into the CNN article because there's more. There is more. When Trump previously invoked Merchant's daughter while trying to disqualify him from the case, Merchant solicited a recommendation from the New York State Advisory Committee on Judicial Ethics. They concluded that the judge's impartiality cannot reasonably be questioned based on the judge's relatives' business and or political activities. So essentially they said, listen, for as unethical as this all sounds, um, for as much of a conflict of an interest, as far as a conflict of interest as this clearly is, technically speaking, technically speaking, and they do have a point. Technically, just because his daughter has a business working with the Democratic Party, Harris and Biden, it doesn't technically mean that the judge himself is not capable of being impartial. So, realistically speaking, technically speaking, that is correct, right? Or I should say, technically speaking, that's correct. But realistically speaking, I think if you or I were Trump and this was the case for us, we would all be very upset because we know, realistically speaking, there's a serious conflict here. There's a serious conflict here. And with a conflict of that nature, I'd be pretty terrified that this case was going to be an automatic L for me. Now it's going to get into the actual company. Who are Authentic's clients? Who are the clients of the daughter of the judge? Well, here, we're going to get into that right now. It's difficult to directly link Authentic to specific political ads, but the firm works for campaigns that have disparaged Trump, including for being charged with crimes. Meaning that this company that she works for, I believe they said the president for, they're the ones who put out the smear campaigns towards Trump. They're the ones who put this information out there that has now made it difficult for them to find the juror for the trial because of the information that they put out there. That's why now everything is so difficult, right? Because the company that she works for puts this information out there. And her father is the judge of this trial. That's insanity to me. That is insanity. Authentic's campaign websites, Authentic Campaign's website features a list of clients, which includes Biden and Harris's 2020 campaigns. Federal records indicate that Harris's campaign paid the firm more than $7.5 million in 2019 for digital consulting and acquiring contact lists. The Harris campaign paid $7.9 million, $7.5 million, I should say, to this firm. And the Biden campaign paid the firm more than $2.1 million in 2020 for digital advertising and creative consulting. 7.5 million from Harris, 2.1 million from Biden. Here are some of their other clients as well. The firm's website also touts its work for Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs, and the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, and the top PAC supporting Senate Democrats and House Democrats. Those are huge names. Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, the Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs, they don't just work with anybody. They work with only the top Democrats in the nation. And these are all the same top Democrats as well who smear Trump's name on a regular basis, daily basis. Once again, this is the firm that actually puts out the information that does the smearing. Like I said earlier, this is the firm that has put out the information that has made it so difficult for them to even find jurors for this trial. This is the firm that the judge's daughter works for. And this judge will be presiding over this case. Like I said, a lot of people, they're glass half full. Me personally, I've always been a glass half empty kind of guy. And I'm telling you, man, if this was me, I'd be hot. If I was Trump, I'd be very, very nervous slash scared because the deck is stacked against him like crazy right now. It is stacked against him like crazy. And if he's able to pull this off, if Trump is able to walk out of this trial, the hush money trial, unscathed with just what we know now, that man is truly made out of Teflon. He's truly untouchable. But that's yet to be seen. And I will definitely keep you all updated on this because I will definitely be following this. I think I saw somebody put earlier that they're not even trying to hide anymore. Let me see if I can find that on the way out of here. Who put that? Yeah, here we go. Lauren said they aren't even trying to hide the bias. They're not. They're not. And to be honest with you, that's what's a little scary is that the bias can be this blatant. The bias could be this out in the open. And we're all just carrying on as if everything is okay, right? And the thing is that you always have to remember, and I'll say this in closing, even to those who despise Donald Trump, right? You can hate the guy all you want, but understand corruption on this level, when they're able to pull this off, or if they're able to pull this off to a former US president, you don't stand a chance. Regular everyday people don't stand a chance. If they're able to pull off stuff like this, and if they are successful with Trump, when your time comes, if your time comes, ooh wee, when corruption like this is able to run rampant, regular folks, everyday folks like you and me don't stand a chance. That's where a lot of people, even people who I saw that didn't like Trump, a few years back when he was first kicked off Twitter, while most Democrats were celebrating that, there were some that were like, hey man, we're treading on thin ice here, because if they'll boot him off, once again, regular everyday people like you and me don't stand a chance. And what I'm noticing is that ever since he's been in office, or ever since Trump has went through his cycle of being the president and whatnot, what I've noticed is that the media has used Trump as the catalyst to normalize, in my opinion, totalitarian behavior. They've used him to catalyst the normalization of censorship. They're using him as a catalyst to now create a new normal of corruption as it pertains to the legal system. Now, we all know legal system has always had its issues, to say the very least. But once again, in closing, for it to be this blatant and just out in the open and in your face like this, and we're all just going to carry on like everything's cool, like this isn't a problem, like this isn't an issue, the trial's just able to proceed, and just, yeah, there it is. Yeah, we're in trouble. We are in trouble. And with all that being said, that does it for today's stream. I want to thank you all for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Let me give my thank yous. Once again, shout out to Carlton Way 1 for coming through with their support. I thank you, Carlton. Shout out to John Mayers. Shout out to Carla Lockard for 1 month of service. I appreciate you, Carla. And shout out to my big homie, Kiko Sr., for coming through as he always done. He said, good work, TD. I appreciate you, Kiko. Thank you for coming through as you always do. I will catch you guys tomorrow evening at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until tomorrow evening, have a great evening and a safe one. Peace.